couple things I guess are coming to mind. I mean, there's a lot of great information. You know, I'm thinking of you know, how at Hy-Vee, you know, these different things might be able to fit into the equation, right? Like, so Hy-Vee's a big company. I'm just a part of the conversations that would need to take place to bring something like this to life. So, you know, kind of as I said before in the last meeting when I presented, you know, I can't make any commitments today, but I love the ideas and I love the direction that this whole group is focused. So, it like I said earlier, it really aligns with our company mission, right? And so one of the things that my dad and I have talked about is, and what came up strong at our table is soil health. And one of the things that I guess I circled to in our discussions here at our small group was how does the consumer get to see that? And you know, you see some consumers they're becoming more educated on the topic of soil health and regenerative practices, right? But it's also a little bit confusing, I think, for the consumer. And so as the retailer being the most direct in front of the consumer, right, what's our best way to help transfer that message through to help support this type of initiative? So in my mind, you know, I'm wondering, you know, that score for soil health score really stood out to me, and I thought, well, that's easy, right? Like, I'm a consumer. To me, if I saw two items next to each other and that soil health score was higher, I would choose the one that has the higher score, and hopefully it costs the same, right? That's a big perk as a consumer if it just happened to match the price. Because, you know, there's a point, right, when we hit a price point where you'll start to see that choice fade off, right? So in conversations with Bob in the past, we've talked about, you know, from my perspective, I think you know, we could look at it from the end price, right? What's the shelf price currently today, and is something like this viable for all the different components through the system that we're talking about? Is it viable to allow the farmer to flourish, to sustain the co-op, the hub, right, and to give a little bit to Capital City Fruit and to Hy-Vee and still hit a price point?
Yeah.
What's left over? Is there anything? Is it viable, right? So that's kind of like, how is it one way to look at it, right? We can go at this from a lot of different angles, but I want it to be viable. I think it has good potential. But that's part of like why we're here today, right? Is try to solve that puzzle. There's so many contributing pieces to that puzzle. And it won't be solved today, right?
Oh,
but,
no.
But where do we start? Like, what are the takeaways? Where can we see this going? So, got a couple of hands up. Mike.
Okay, I mentioned it to you, I think, a few months ago, but I don't know if you remember, but, you know, you guys have a loyalty rewards program. You know, so you could, if it's more expensive to the consumer, but you know it's better and you want to promote this product, maybe there's a way to tie in the local farmers that are participating in homegrown, so that some of the cost of identifying that soil health and making sure that it's there is added to the farmer's margin through that loyalty rewards program. Like, somehow finding some way to balance it out.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that I think Hy-Vee could incentivize this type of thing or help to support. Maybe that's by a reduced margin or extra incentives, or you hit different places, right? So I think there are a lot of ways that Hy-Vee could help to influence that, right?
Yeah.
But you know, that's one part of the puzzle, right? Just one other piece that needs to be considered. So,
Well, I was just gonna say, when you asked the question, you know, how could Hy-Vee perhaps, you know, accelerate this or incentivize it? You know, we spent the last, effectively, the whole post-war, World War II period, dumbing down food intelligence and, you know, individuals' understanding of what it is to eat well. It's not gonna be shifted overnight, but a community partner like Hy-Vee, I mean, heck, you have Dee as the nutritionist. I don't know if you still have that position open at Hy-Vee.
we need her for 20 hours a week right now.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, she might be available.
It is really clear to me that it's a longer-term strategy of re-educating the consumer about what it is, why I want to eat this local grown, homegrown versus the packaged super processed product. And
Yeah.
that's a long-term budgetary item on the part of Hy-Vee to invest in it.
I agree, and I think there's already efforts that I've seen that are aligned with that, right? So I think you'll see more of that. I think not only you, but the consumer, us, are asking for that, right? We want that transparency, that visibility. You know, we were talking again about soil health and the score, and, you know, if you remember, if you've been around Hy-Vee long enough, you might remember the new value score, the new val score that used to be there, right? So I think you're gonna see some of that start to evolve again, right? Is how does the consumer be able to look at a package, look at a product, and quickly understand what's the best choice, right? Like that I think helps with that education piece tremendously, because then not only can they make a quick informed decision with, you know, a third party that's helping to probably rate that product, right? We can't rate that ourselves. Somebody else has to help organize that. There are apps for that, we talked about at our table, that can help do that right now. But how can we make it easier for the customer to make that healthier decision, right? So just again, aligns with our mission, you know, and we're looking to solve those problems or those questions for the customer so that it's smooth for them, right? It's easy for them to shop and to have confidence in that rating or in that information, right? So once as a consumer you have that type of maybe scorecard or that information quick in front of you, then you can really tie that into some quick educational depth there if you want to go at it that way too. And consumers will navigate towards that to try to understand, well, what do they mean it's got this score? What's that score mean? What goes into it? Oh, that's because of this. Let's tell the story, right? So I think there's a lot of potential there. You could also get out there, you know, we've talked about some different funding. I've had some side conversations about some different funding that's out there to help with this educational material, you know, and to just provide some things at the stores that people can grab and review, that they're not being sold, it's just informational, right? And, but, you know, we do have the current homegrown program at Hy-Vee, and that, I feel like that does well from a store-by-store decision point. And then, so local, in order to get into our stores, you can come in and promote your product to any store within Hy-Vee, right? And you can go to that produce department and you can say, hey, I'm the grower that lives right down the road, and here are the commodities that I can offer you. Would there be an interest? Do we have a match on what you might need, what you're looking for these seasons, right? So you can do that. You can offer the product for sale in our store, and if the produce department manager makes the decision to go forward, they can take that leap, sign those agreements and go forward, right? And that's when kind of my area, my department will step in and say, well, wait a minute, store, you know, like we gotta check and see who your grower is, what do they got going on for food safety, how do we make sure we protect our customer? And, you know, we collect some paperwork, we exchange a questionnaire to figure out what it is they're growing or what it is they're maybe producing. In some situations, it's not just produce and growth, it's value added, right? So we navigate that, we determine, all right, we're gonna approve them to be in a store. At that point, you've got, you know, your name in the system with Hy-Vee, right? So then, if it's successful, you can go to the next store and say, hey, look what we're doing next door down at, you know, this other location. It's successful, it's a win-win, can we get in your store as well? You know, pretty soon, you're getting closer to a region and you're able to, though, grow, right? So, at that point, then, you know, where I feel like there's a big opportunity is the gap then that exists after that. Because then you're limited to a smaller area, a smaller group of stores, and there's a pretty big jump before you are able to get into the warehouse. That's where things really will start to escalate. We'll have stricter requirements to get into our warehouse. We'll have way higher volume needs, right? So like to get a product into the warehouse, we have to dedicate inventory space as well as a pick slot location on the floor for that product to be able to be picked up and placed onto an order. So floor space, inventory space is valuable, right? So it has to be a high moving, high turn product. So there's a gap there, and that's where I feel like Capital City Fruit is a great partner to help offset some of that gap. But then also, like, there needs to be diversity in the market to give the grower stability, security.
Right.
We can't have everyone relying on Hy-Vee, right? That's another piece where Capital City Fruit comes in great, because they have an outlet for some of this product that might not meet spec. So you've got spec items, Hy-Vee can take these specs, but we've got food service options that Capital City has that we don't have, right? So there's some of that too. So I think diversity is important, right? Like, and hopefully some of our discussions in this type of system could help close that gap, right? And provide more of an option for Capital City Fruit, who has customers other than just Hy-Vee. We can spread out a little bit. They can handle probably some lower volumes before it would be a large enough volume to get into our warehouse, right? So how do we bridge that gap that we have right now? It's kind of a part of what I've been thinking, so.
Bob? Well, no, I was just thinking, conceptually, in my simplistic mind, I said, well, can we have two like big buyers? And can we find farmers who would have the technical support and everything to grow? Could we put the minimum possible, but no less, aggregation, cooling and everything, and somehow make that system work and then build it out from there? I realized it was inevitably going to be more complicated than that, but that was the thought that I had in mind that kind of impelled creating this meeting, so that we could see how close to that very simple initial system, where we're not trying to meet a whole lot of different needs. We can figure out what Hy-Vee can do maybe on the store level, and maybe we won't be ready for your warehouse for a while. But can we fill in with Capital City? Can we create a system where we've got enough offtake so that we can build this thing out with some degree of assurance? So if some farmer takes this thing on, that they're not gonna get hung out to dry. I mean, I did recall, correct me if I'm wrong, but you did, I think, mention, Brent, that on occasion, if a farmer's upside down or something happens, you might be willing to take less or a loss on a given shipment to protect the farmer. When I heard that, I said, okay, I think these are people we can work with, because we've got to de-risk the system as much as possible. So, obviously I'm a layman on this thing, just looking at it from kind of a simplistic standpoint, but I'd love to hear from you, Brent, as to how you see a offtake model interfacing with Hy-Vee, that we could then, okay, so here's our purchasing model, here's what we can expect.
So from what Kyle said, I would say you have three channels, basically going direct to the store, which involves harvesting, going to the store, daily, weekly, delivering, and those kind of functions. And then you could sell to us directly, either if you aggregated and brought it to us, or if you aggregated and we had a truck come pick it up. We have food service accounts, and we have cutter accounts that just slice this stuff up to go in soups or other items like processors that are out there. We have all kinds of those accounts as well. So typically, when we have a grower of any kind, we can usually buy the entire crop from them, because we have the outlet for all of them. So that's what they want, right? They don't want us, don't just take my premium stuff here, which is, Hy-Vee doesn't want anything but what's high appealing to the consumer. So that's why direct to the store is great. When you get into higher volume, we can help there. And then we deliver to Sheridan 4 or 5 days a week. Now, we've been with them 60-some years with Hy-Vee. And, different items, different things that you grow. You wanna make sure you're growing the right items for sure. There's certain high volume items that sell easier and are easier to take from you as a grower than others. So that's a list that you would probably wanna start with. Here's here's the ones, here's the items that you'll start with and maybe you can sell, and then we can sell, turn around, because our volume, I don't know what it is now, but we're doing truckloads a day, bringing product in from either Mexico or California or Holland, all over the place that we're bringing in product of any kind. So for helping you have an outlet, I'm pretty sure, we'll be able to handle that profitably. You have to be GOP certified to come through our warehouse, period. There is no exception. Sounds like Kyle has that requirement at the store level too. And so that's a requirement you would have to have some sort of, and maybe not, I don't know.
At the individual store, the one-on-one relationship, we don't currently require the GAP certification for 100% of our growers. But I can't say that won't change tomorrow, right? Like, that's something that my team, we want that. We'd like to have that GAP certification. How far are we from that, and can we get there, right? So that's where we'll help support in those efforts where we can, and keep things moving towards the certification.
And we have,
Wouldn't you say though that requiring GAP is a low rung of the food safety ladder?
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that, as a minimum requirement.
Yeah, it's just making sure that you have some of those best practices in place, right?
We're Primus Global. I'm not a food safety guy. I'm a sales guy and a marketing guy.
That's why you're here,
I barely know all the items in the warehouse when we go out there, and I stay away from the cold coolers if I can help it at all, as the group that came with me probably knows. But, so GAP certification is minimal. There's a gentleman that joined me last time that couldn't be here, Johnny, who goes out to the farms. He would come out and help for your facility if you had one. Each of the individual farmers, we would help in whatever way we could partner for that. So to even come through our warehouse, and then we would take it, to Sheraton possibly, or it might go to Chicago or one of our other. We distribute in a 500, 600 mile radius currently to all the states touching us we go to, including now Cincinnati, Indianapolis area. So like US Foods, Cisco, Martin Brothers, all those food service accounts are some of our larger customers. And we actually are now a core distribution center for US Foods. There's only a handful in the whole country. We're smaller than any of the others, but we have jumped to the #1 PRC, they call it, in the first 6 months. We're doing our volume. Produce Regional Distribution Center. But in addition to that, we're also, it's not just produce, we're handling rice and all kind of paper goods that go to these locations. So they put produce on with these other items and they deliver one truck. So it saves them a lot. So those core carriers will come to our location, deliver all this, we put them in the warehouse, and then we put them on a truck to go out. So we have a lot of outlet for product.
Tommy had a comment, question.
Yeah, I guess I just, thinking about like the way this is laid out right now, and you're talking about the jump in scale between selling more to like one store or a group of stores or just selling to your warehouse. And I guess I see like Hy-Vee is able to buy at these two scales right now. And it seems like we want both of the scales to continue existing. Like we want producers to produce at both of those scales. And so Capital City fills that niche really well, selling for the larger producers to sell into your warehouse. But that requires kind of a larger scale production, and a lot of the major certification, and I think that's where we get into the conversation about transitioning some of our commodity farms right now into alternative production, like 20 acres of butternut squash. That's what we can sell through the Capital City supply chain. But what I don't want to get lost, that I think is important, is that we kind of have an existing food system already in Iowa that's not at that scale. And that's more where you could sell into the regional or the stores there. And what's true in that system is that there's already too much supply. So like for about 4 months of the year, there's all of these 1/4 acre to 10 acre hobby farms in the state of Iowa that are producing way too much food for our current markets, that are part of, you know, the Choose Iowa marketing program, that the state is trying to invest more in, that need more markets, that I think Hy-Vee really could come in and help purchase at the smaller level. But it also sounds like Capital City maybe doesn't have, or is looking for more producers at the larger scale in Iowa. I mean, is that safe to say?
We can handle any of the volume. I don't know that we're searching for larger scale. We want to partner with local as well. Local is a big part of our business during the 4 or 5 months, you know, that we have. I was talking earlier, and, you know, in Iowa, you have 4 or 5 months, where in a warmer region, you may have 11, 12 months that you can use your equipment and have a return on your investment. You only have a shorter window, so your products are usually actually more expensive sometimes than other areas, so we compete against the, you know, your price is a little higher here than it is if I can get it from California or whatever region. So we fight that battle as well. But people seem to understand that. Hy-Vees have always consistently paid more for local, understanding that. So people know that the demand is there from the consumer for local, even more so than organic, from what we see.
Well,
Back in the back, sorry. So you had a question?
Yeah, I do.
No, if it's
okay, I'm curious from Hy-Vee's perspective, like what can we do to fill out that smaller than warehouse level supply chain that's already existing and that there's already too much supply in?
Yeah, a lot of that decision right now is left to the stores for the in-between. So that's kind of back to where if you can get in conversations with those stores that are within that area. So within that territory, what stores would be able to help with that product at what times of the season? And to start to have those conversations early with the produce department managers, because at that level, they would have to plan out their produce department for that season as it approaches and have to be aligned with you in that area. So depending on what region you're in, what stores are closest, and then having those conversations. Dan wasn't able to join us today. He came to the last meeting, Dan Atkinson, and I've been talking with him, and you know, he's okay with this group, you know, getting in direct contact with the produce managers out within his region to have those conversations with those stores and to help grow the homegrown program, right? So from the corporate office, I've heard that, you know, the encouragement continues to partner with the local growers and to continue to build those relationships, and where you can, you know, buy the crop. And if you can do it, and maybe partner with another store to buy the crop, so that you can help support that local, follow, you know, keep working towards our mission, and then, you know, hopefully it continues to be successful. So, and pay them soon, pay them early, right? That's another piece that I've heard from the stage is that
We pay ours very quickly, yeah. They're paid
we know that's important, right? So,
cash flow.
No, I can verify that working with Hy-Vee many years ago, that they were very spot on. Yeah, reimbursing us very quickly.
So Beth had a comment.
I guess, I've not heard of a farmer that sells to you at Capital City in the state. And I'm wondering, like, what really is the focus on local if you're buying from Holland and you're buying, you know, like, because it is a different whole model and a different price point and a different profit margin on your end, if this is something that you wanna do. So I'd like to know more about what you do currently and how that might morph into being more local farmer friendly.
So during the local season, 95% of our veg and all is local that we
So where,
send
like,
out.
who's
So Lopeta Farms, Al Lopeta is one of our big farmers. He has 600 acres of produce. We buy from the Amish groups down in the Missouri area. There's not a lot of produce farms in Iowa yet, so that's why I'm here too. They're just not out there, you know, it's all corn and soybeans, and usually there's a passion to get into produce here. Or, you know, they like punishment, I don't know.
Brett, do you buy from Butcher Boy, the tomato? And
Bushel Boy, we work with Bushel Boy,
Yeah.
yeah, we sure do.
and from Minnesota and from Iowa?
Yes, and we also, you know, there's some farms in Wisconsin, Heath Farms. I don't know all the local grown farms, but there's a list of about 40 to 45, 50 family farms that we do purchase from.
So I guess it's like the question on my mind is just sort of like that, those are probably farms that can offer you at a price point and maybe with different kinds of growing that, you know, we wouldn't do. And so I guess I'm curious as to like how you see your model morphing to work with us in addition to us morphing to work with you all.
So like the Amish group is a group of families there, and they each have about an acre each, 2 acres each, right? Or whatever it is, and they take it to a co-op type shed where they then put it on, we leave a refrigerated trailer down there because there's no electricity. So things like that, we partner, so they, you know, aggregate everything there, and we take it all from all those families at one time. So it scales that way, and we have other, you know, similar arrangements where there's several smaller groups that combine, and then we just bring it all at one time.
Just for the sake of conversation, let's say that you had 5 or 10 farmers in the county that were growing things you could buy. And how important is it that you would have like an aggregation center, such as this warehouse, and people in charge of working with the farms, make sure that things come in when you need them and stuff, and then you could just come pick up here? Or are you already covering that as far as you already have the infrastructure to go pick up at the farm? What would you prefer?
We can, I mean, it'd be great if you could have it delivered somehow. There was someone in the last meeting that said they were already coming up, I thought, up to either Iowa City or Des Moines, can't remember who that was.
Well, it probably was,
It's Camp Creek organic.
yeah, Camp Creek
Okay.
Organic.
So I instantly thought, well, that would help, because the logistics, there's a cost involved.
Yeah.
If we come down, it's gonna increase the price, if you can get it delivered, you know, a lower price, but, yeah, if you had, five farms that wanted to do that, we would be able to make that work. It just, the numbers have to work, logistics is a part of it, yeah.
So, like, with the Amish, just, can you run us through, like, do you have a contract with them? I mean, is that, because it sounds like if you're leaving the trailer, you know when to go, like, everything's kind of set up.
There is no, yeah, so they have from what I understand, I haven't been there, but there's a shed area, there's no building or facility either, so they load it on a trailer in some cases. So if you wouldn't necessarily even need a building to start. Maybe there's a way just to congregate it on a trailer that we have here, and everyone brings it to the trailer for that week or day or whatever it is, and we schedule a pickup and we just leave a trailer and bring one back, is what we do. I don't know if that's an option to start even, you know, as a trial.
Brett, would that be like backhauling from, you
There you
know,
go.
go to Sheraton and pick up and then come here, something like that?
Yeah, but like I said, there's, you know, our transportation is a separate entity, and so they would have a cost involved that we would have to build
It's
in.
not- You don't own that, you
So,
contract that out.
well, we own it, but it's a subsidiary of our own profit center, so they would have to charge us whatever it is.
Hy-Vee's the same way in their transportation system, there's that, it's a separate profit center, so like by the mile, they bid rates and things against other carriers, so we often do have full trucks that are going out, obviously, from our distribution centers, but full trucks that are picking up backhauls on the way home as well, so that we're, you know, if you have an empty truck, you're not maximizing that resource, so, sorry, you had a question?
Yeah.
Well, I was just kind of continuing on that, because it seems like there's forethought in the Amish model, right?
Mhm.
So it's like a contract, so at some point, could you guys give us, you know, like, here are the 6 most, you know, easily sold products that we think grow in this area, this is something that we get from Amish people, but, you know, we
Yeah.
can still use more.
Absolutely.
And these are the seasons, this is the price, and then are you like setting the price? I mean, do they know that all ahead of time? I guess they're kind of thinking,
Yeah.
this is winter time, it's a great time to plan.
Well, yeah, we do that now. We just met with all our other, with local grown customers. We just met with every one of them, just finished up, met with Hy-Vee Friday. Met with others Wednesday, fairly. So we met with all the food service accounts because we wanna know what went well, what can we improve? Are you gonna do the same items? What items do you wanna take away, and what new items would you like us to plan for? Because the farmer needs to buy seed, got a plan, right? So we think about those things, and we have another kickoff around March or April. Okay, let's do this again. Any changes? And so we plan that as well as the marketing side. We do social media, we do shelf tags, we do all kind of things on the marketing side with, you know, food service and retail. But they do at the Amish have one individual that's a coordinator, or farm manager of some kind, because they don't have cell phones either. So anything we do is communicated through this individual, and he helps coordinate everything or get them on the phone. So yeah, that model is very similar to what we think might work.
Do you
right.
do seasonal pricing, market price, or do you give them a flat price for their broccoli or what?
Both. So we were talking earlier, one of the most successful ways is for us to agree on a flat, price throughout the season, which allows the grower to plan and do his numbers to make, do your numbers to make sure you're gonna make money, right? And then as the market goes up and down, nobody cares because we agreed on this.
Yeah.
Customers sometimes will see, they won't say anything when they're well below the market. But at the end, they're like, hey, wait a minute, you're way over. We had this happen with one account not too long ago. Like, yeah, you forgot how much money you were saving here, but you call now. And thank goodness there's only a week and a half or two left, so no. And don't compare our local price and say we're too high compared to the market. What market?
Yeah.
Michigan? The coast? I mean, where are we talking, this market you're talking about? So there is no other market to compare. It's Iowa, local grown, Midwest, local grown.
Well, I guess that's the fear, is that the Amish is who we then be competing with, which is a very different, probably far less expensive model. And we could probably not ever sell you kind of vegetables at the same kind of cost.
Well, Lofa is bigger than the whole Amish
Yeah,
altogether.
I would say that fear is 10 years
Yeah.
old.
I would,
And that fear went out the door when butternut squash hit 50 cents a pound.
yeah,
The Amish are not undercutting the market.
no.
Not, if anything, they're holding it higher than it should be.
Yeah, that's true.
So are the Amish, are their products, are they grown chemically free or are they conventionally grown?
Well, no product I'm aware of is chemical free, even organic, because that's pretty, right? I mean,
Not in
But-
Iowa.
they're not, they're not,
Iowa.
yeah, right.
Or organic.
They're not certified organic, but they do practice, minimal chemicals and things like that. But all the farms, have food safety in place and try to stay away from that.
When you are marketing your local grown produce, do you do that through, is it a capital city kind of marketing, this is local grown, these are locally grown apples from this region? Or do you call out farmers?
The farm and farmers, we'd rather do that than our name on it.
So is traceability all the way from?
Traceability, it makes it tough to tie it to one farm, if you can imagine the scale. There's 250 stores. Your products aren't gonna be local to the ones in Minnesota, necessarily hyper-local. So there's hyper-locals, like 50 miles, Hy-Vee is 200 miles, I think, for,
The homegrown.
Homegrown,
thing,
and then Midwest after that. So that's the way you scale. You can't, good luck going and finding a produce grower every 50-mile spot, right? It ain't gonna happen. So, but marketing wise, yeah, we try to tie it, they wanna hear the story of the grower, the family of the grower, we have pictures of them, we have them on the tractors with the kids. This was, one of our family farms is what we say.
So it's not true to that item necessarily, but
No.
this is your catalog of growers and this is.
Well, yeah,
and then so if it's like cucumbers, for instance, we'll have cucumbers and this is from one of our family farms, and then we'll put 3 growers possibly or 2, things like that. And the social media, we try to do as much of that as we can for the customer, because we found if we create the social media and things like that, like trying to go to Hy-Vee's marketing department, they're great, but they're a year out, 6 months, a year out on everything. That book you get at the holidays was planned a year ago.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get their attention, or, so if you do it yourself, and the stuff, especially at the, regional or store levels, they love it because they don't have to create it and they have new content. So that's what we do. I have a full-time marketing coordinator that does the graphics and the things like that, so.
And we could even amplify that, those of us who have some social media presence,
You bet.
we can absolutely take that and amplify it.
Yeah, so we would, as a group, I
Yeah.
think we'd wanna promote your whole group.
I want to go back to the GAP certification. So
Okay.
when I did GAP certification for a farm that I was managing, I did level 1 and level 2. Are there still 4 levels?
I'm the wrong guy to ask, are there?
I'm
Do
the
you
wrong
know?
guy to ask too.
Johnny,
I haven't,
here, do you
haven't been
know?
on that side.
No, yeah, sorry. I believe there are.
It was the, in the classroom, which was really extensive, it was all day. And then step 2 is writing your farm plan. Step 3 was doing a trial visit, and then 4 was the visit. And at that time, the closest visitor was in California, so it cost a lot of money. But now we have somebody in Iowa who
Yeah,
can do that.
that's
so,
right.
yeah.
In fact, he was at our meeting last time, he
Yeah.
just did an audit at Lopina.
Yeah,
Whoever that was, he had just been to Lopina, so.
yeah.
So I just, Savannah Lauer from BFI says, what incentives are offered to store produce managers to encourage more local procurement? What, in Hy-Vee, what's the infrastructure there look like?
In one of the last, local seasons that we had for the homegrown program, they did offer the produce managers specifically like a contest, and there was an incentivized contest. So they were looking at total volume, total sales that went through the homegrown program. And they were, giving out some awards, some financial incentives to those produce managers, for those that broke the records and held the top scores. So Hy-Vee, I guess, from the corporate office, they are trying to promote that and using things like that to incentivize, so.
Just 2 questions. One was about the soil testing. So I know Faith is the expert, so I want to ask her while she's here. So it seemed, I've heard lots of things that it's kind of too expensive for commodity grains to do that at the scale that grains are grown. But at the same time, I met with some folks in AEA who said that the majority of their customers are actually commodity grain farmers. So I'm kind of wondering what you guys think about the viability of actually doing that kind of testing in terms of the cost. And then the other thing was about the traceability. So aren't there rules coming out, I think 2028, that are gonna require you to be able to say which, FSMA,
Yeah.
which farm it actually comes from?
Yeah, the FSMA 206 is the new rule from the FDA, and that requires the traceability back to the farm, right? So it goes from the grower all the way through the process, and that'll be that bar-coded, application. Now, like everything, I think there are some exceptions to that based on the size of the business. But the produce safety rule is a new FDA requirement that was put forward out there as well, and that's above and beyond the GAP certification. When you get to a certain size, you've got to meet the requirements of the FDA produce safety rule. FDA just in the last few months published small business guidance that aligns with the produce safety rule, but it isn't the whole thing. So there may be, that's a good roadmap, I guess, is, you start with the GAP certification, then you work your way up based on volume and size of business to the small entity guidance, and that's a lot easier to digest than that produce safety rule. It's like 30 pages instead of several hundred pages, and so it breaks it down though, it's looking at water, it's looking at health and hygiene, it's looking at training requirements and things, so it really does provide. I know it's always intimidating to get the book out and to dive in there, but that's a pretty good guidance manual that's easier to navigate through, to see, you know, once we get to scale, if we're looking at a hub and an aggregation center, that risk goes up for the customer, right? That's where we would need more to be in place, right? So, but that's where this type of hub could provide that resource, right? Like there's value there for the growers because they don't have to look through all those manuals and deal with all those rules as heavily firsthand, right? They can, just like shared equipment, you're gonna have plenty of other resources that could be shared as well. And that's where I think it helps Hy-Vee to be able to have confidence in that product.
Yeah.
And to partner with the hub, that gives us a good stretch to branch out further and just work with, you know, the hub on some of their initiatives. We can carry through a lot further to local that way. So, yeah.
Well, I was just saying, you mentioned earlier, and it seems like appropriate to this audience, that, for example, this site, that either interior space or a location for a refrigerated truck to be parked, if we could start out, you know, the smallest modular solution set that you can come up with, and then we, you know, work backwards to the producer community, say within the 30-40 mile radius of Fairfield, to fill that truck every week on a seasonal basis with products that Capital City Fruit says, this is the high demand items. And then growers in this room work backwards to figure out how to grow it so that first stage modular pilot, if you will, gets a chance of proving out. Sure. And little by little by little, Troy's got at least 30,000 square feet back there for us to fill up.
Yeah, well, we're gonna take a tour at 2 o'clock when Troy comes back, we're gonna see that.
So previously, fruits and vegetables produce was not regulated. If it was whole, it just went to the market.
Yeah.
You know, all of the pushback that people give because produce is gonna be regulated, if you look at the dairy industry, no milk would have ever gone to the market had the farmer pushed back so much on regulation. It's like, come on, people, it's a world of food safety. We have COVID, we have this, you know, it's going to happen. And even now, the new standard for produce is going to be less than what the dairy farmers did in 1950.
Wow.
Yes.
So, buck it up.
We just dealt with the carrot recall that everybody probably saw in the news. Right before that, it was an egg recall, you know, so it's, for me in my job, the recalls unfortunately are almost an everyday thing. There were recalls that came through the Hy-Vee system, not for our products, but for products that we carry, right? That came through our system, so, it's a regular piece of communication within the company. Yeah.
And then the frozen carrots, the carrots that were processed and put into frozen mixes. Oh
Well, the
my God.
cucumbers, it's just recently.
It carries so far in the different items
Yeah.
that becomes an ingredient, it just starts to extrapolate.
I just wanted to get this one in edgewise. I mean, it's a much bigger, longer term strategy, but again, if I'm sitting in the Hy-Vee C-suite, I'm trying to grow my marketplace. And if you can think of us as like a focus group for that. So for example, I take the Southeast Iowa Union and, you know, which comes hard copy twice a week, and there's always a Hy-Vee insert, and it's all about price. That's all it is. You know, this is on sale, that's on sale, that's on sale. The opportunity to actually guide my understanding as a consumer about what's valuable, because right now you're training me that the only thing that matters is low price. And instead, you know, if over the years I'm seeing Hy-Vee drop in messages, pictures, links to videos that says, here's where we build value for our community. Because I really think some big retailer has to take leadership in this area, or else we're all just gonna go down the high cost of cheap into
Yeah.
the toilet.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that was my comment about the loyalty programs too.
Exactly.
Because they can
Tie
leverage
in-
things like that.
Tie into a loyalty program.
Yeah.
You know, like right now, I don't value gasoline expense too much, but boy, if you gave me a local credit, a local grown credit value, yeah, I'd play in that arena.
I buy gas at Hy-Vee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're no problem.
Yeah, I think,
That works, obviously.
Definitely.
you know, I think there's a lot of data out there that Hy-Vee looks at to help coordinate the marketing and the communication piece, right? We have whole departments for that study that. And we try to always meet the customer where they're at, right? That's important. They're the ones steering the ship for us. Price is extremely important right now.
It always has been, yes.
It always has been, right? And it's even, seems like it's escalated right now, at least for the feedback that we're getting, right? So we're trying to do our best to hit the price point that will make a difference to our customer, right? So I think you're seeing that right now. That is definitely a push. It started around October and we're not giving up, right? So we're gonna go full force ahead with that. At the same time, what you maybe don't see as much of are the important pieces of our company that are purpose-driven, right? So we do have several purpose-driven initiatives that have been already, you know, deployed and that are being deployed. You know, so we do have a lot of solar projects that are underway. We have disaster relief fleet that responds to the Greenfield tornado. I personally went to Florida on the trip down there to respond to the hurricane efforts. So purpose-driven is huge within our company, and it is a big driver of where we go. And the community and local is critical to that, right? So that's always there. Sometimes we don't shout it, but if you look, it's there.
Well, I would just say, from my point of view, put it on the headline, let me know that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, right now, to me, there's not much differentiation, there's a little bit, I should be more fair, but you are trying to play kind of like, remember, Avis we're number 2, we try hard. Sort of like Walmart and Hy-Vee, you guys are on the same kind of wavelength in many ways, and in my view, if I'm in the long-term strategy game, you know, how do you differentiate yourself and show me that you're not that cheap is the only thing driving the company's efforts?
I'd like to emphasize that because I would not have known about the Greenfield Hy-Vee truck if I hadn't gone to Greenfield. I had no idea you guys were doing that. But I drive in and it's not just that you're hauling supplies, it was the registration center. If you had to be a volunteer in Greenfield, you had to go to a registration center before you were out into the community. Here sits this big Hy-Vee truck in this parking lot of some local manufacturing company. So I think maybe you're being a little too quiet about some of those other things.
And you know what, and it's.
Kyle, when you're CEO, man.
Time to tell the story, right? Like, all right, so yeah.
We live in a multimedia environment, you've really gotta use all those tools.
And it
And
is.
I agree with Stuart, that little flyer, I don't look at it because I know it's all gonna be ads. But if somehow I started noticing that you were doing more than just the price point, I might look at it. But right now I don't.
Yeah, and honestly, when it comes to paper, we're getting a little bit out of the paper, okay? I mean, that's just naturally, I think everyone is getting a little bit further away from the paper and from the print. But we do definitely communicate a lot through social media. And so Facebook, I mean, you know, and Instagram and all the other channels that I haven't subscribed to yet, they're there, right? And they're being used and they're postings that are tagging Hy-Vee in them from our customers that are helping to tell that story, right? Social media itself helps really without a lot of cost, just word of mouth and all that is there as well.
Yeah, I wanna try to tie it back in, because I think first, like, marketing is a big sort of broad term, and promotions on social media are different from probably what Hy-Vee's marketing budget is in. So before 5G era, my previous experience for 6 or 7 years was points and payments, right? In mobile points and payments, and I did that all over the world, and including the United States. So we acquired Shopkick many, many years ago. It's really interesting. So this is why I keep bringing up the loyalty program and the mobile app. Like, the largest mobile payments company in the world for forever, until Apple Pay basically blew up, was Starbucks. And they tied it into their loyalty rewards program, and so everybody had that cash, and they topped it up. And because people would top up their cash, that saves Starbucks a lot of money, especially in markets like the US, where the card transaction fees are very high. And so when I keep tying into them, I keep asking about traceability and soil and all these things, like, what can we do if we build a smaller piece? If the vision is, the regulations are gonna actually incentivize a new piece of the value chain to exist, which are to have a more distributed value chain that's one tier below capital fruit, right? And then what's the incentive in that value chain to get it to the marketplace? So if there's a way to tie it in, where it's like you've got the traceability, you've got some sort of incentive to do these things that can be communicated to the customer, and all Hy-Vee has to do is turn on the perks and say, the way they educate, they don't even have to worry about, I gotta teach you something. They say, guess what? You get a 2% higher cashback return if you buy this like healthy salad. And that's like the easiest argument Hy-Vee can make internally. Rather than trying to come up with promotions and deal with a subsidiary and all this stuff, the easiest thing to do is say, how do we tie it into the value chain? And then say like, hey, our supply chain here is distributed, is more distributed, and we've got this great traceability, this great soil, this great produce, and if you open up your Hy-Vee app, you get this perk. Oh, and if you use cash instead of credit, you get an additional perk. Like that's the kind of, I think, the thing that would really move the needle. Yeah. I wanted to come check out a little bit too.
We can, from what I've seen on the marketing side, again, I'm not directly involved with it, but we can turn that on and off for different items, right? So, I mean, it's just another, we've got a lot of tools in our tool belt, right? And that's one of the tools is, do we want to incentivize that? How can we incentivize it, or how can we promote it, market it?
Yeah.
You turn the needle up to 5 cents a gallon fuel saver for that type of commodity, right? And so that is definitely a way that it could be incentivized.
Incentivizing the whole growth program, if you get to the point where you are getting some sort of metric from a farm, like a soil health score.
Yeah.
And you have done the research to verify that yes, this indicates that the environmental benefits, the ecosystem services of this farm are, are better. Because, you've got more carbon, you're sequestering more, you're infiltrating water, you're charging the groundwater, you're protecting the ecosystems for the other species that, and so you've got this like feel-good effect for actually purchasing local. And so yes, it may be a few cents more than what its adjacent similar product was that was shipped in from far away, but you get that reward on the back end and it's almost like you build a partnership with your customers to protect the environment that you all dwell in.
And to that comment, I thought that would be great as well, and I haven't explored it a lot, but what I'm wondering is, where's that answer at from a third-party scoring system that can be quick and easy to the customer? Because we can't come up with that ourselves, or it's not credible. And we can't change the rules as we play the game, right? So, like, it has to be a predetermined scoring sheet.
You could come up with it yourself, but you would need to get a third party to adopt it.
There you go. We have to stay fair, right? So what's that look like? And
Whole Foods came up with a scoring system many years ago, when I was working with them directly, to corporate, to the regional in the Midwest Center in Munster, Illinois. It was a good, better, best rating system.
Yeah.
And if you were a certified organic farmer, you got a whole lot of points.
Yeah.
And then there were all these different things that they looked at. They didn't look at the soil component, but compost was a part of it. And then the energy you used around the farm. We had wind and solar. So things like that gave us more points. And then the proximity of water on the land to where the crops were growing, where the compost was in proximity to the growing. So there was this whole scoring system. But it fell apart very quickly.
Yeah.
And it was like in a little banner at the point of purchase. So here was your product, your cucumbers, in a Whole Foods store, and then there was something right there. And so it needs to be something,
It needs to be tied into the loyalty program. I think that, because that
Yeah.
loyalty promote, that marketing program is meaningful to the retailer,
Yeah.
but it also helps them rationalize some of the costs of doing these things, right? And because it kicks in not just the price, but also the loyalty of the customer, so you can track how many customers are returning, what's their increased basket size, like all these things you can track when you have that loyalty, and then you can push people when there's a surplus or something, and there's all sorts of things, levers you can pull when you can tap it into that loyalty and payment system.
the thing it didn't
Okay, so
translate
folks,
to.
what we're gonna do, this is a super important discussion, and what we wanna do is leave time to talk about our report outs from our big idea groups.
Oh, I think we covered them.
Did we cover them? Let's review that. Kyle and Brent, thank you. This is
Yeah.
great. Great.